Hello and welcome to episode number 4 of the Pain-Free Cycling Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. John Schaefer, physical therapist, strength conditioning specialist. And on this podcast, I help you, the cyclist, take control of your health both on and off the saddle. My goal is simple. I want you to ride longer, ride stronger, and be at your best on and off the bike for years to come. So kick back, relax, and let's dive into the world of pain-free cycling. All right, we're taking the helmet off, but for the next couple of episodes, I thought it'd be fun to wear a different jersey. So I'm going to show you different jerseys, tell you where I got it, give you a little bit of background. And then today's episode is going to be all about the core. So we'll cover some different anatomy involved, how to rehab that low back that bothers you every single ride or when you're on the bike for 2-3 hours at a time. But yeah, so jersey we are wearing today is St. Arnold's Bike Club. And we are wearing the Banger IPA jersey. So they give out a different jersey every single year for the MS 150, 150 mile charity race to raise awareness for MS. Really cool cause. Great bike club. Really enjoyed being a part of it while I was in Houston. So that's our jersey for the day. Get ready for the next one. We also need to look at getting a little podcast intro going. So we'll get some music and things like that moving forward in future episodes. But so far, really enjoying the podcast, enjoying putting out long form content. Enjoyed a lot more than reels and clips and just shorthand information. It's cool to be able to talk to you guys and connect a little bit more. So today, like I said, we're going to talk about all things core. One of the biggest questions that I'm getting is what core training should I be doing? My back is always sore after long rides, or my leg is going numb, 45 minutes into a ride. What can I do to address this now that's going to make a difference? Because I feel like I've tried the planks, I've tried, short core circuits that I'm finding online on YouTube. Nothing's helping. Where do I go from here? And I think a large portion of cyclists unfortunately have come to accept the fact that they believe back pain is ingrained in the sport. It's like I ride, I'm going to be sore. But that's not the way it has to be. So my goal for the episode is to explain some of the causes of low back pain when riding, as well as discuss some of the ways that you can address that pain and just get feeling a lot better, get riding more comfortably. So when it comes to the core, we often think about that elusive six-pack. We think about boxing montages of Rocky or Mike Tyson doing hundreds of crunches, and even the annoying advertisements that we can't escape from online marketers marketing how to get an 8-pack in 6 weeks, just ridiculousness. No matter where we look, it seems like, abs are glamorized and it's something we see everywhere. We're not quite sure how to get them, but nonetheless, we see them everywhere. So that's all that most of us think about when we're thinking about core. But the core is wildly, misunderstood, and I'd argue that very few even realize that there are different parts that make up the core beyond the abs that we see. So let's start there. The core is composed of 4 different pieces and is often described as a box with a front, a back, a bottom, and a top. So we'll go over each piece here and then explain a little bit, what it is and why it's important. So the front, the star of the show, the abdominal muscles, your abs, those are the ones that we're probably the most familiar with. So I'm not going to go too far in depth with what the abs are. I think we're all very familiar. Those are the muscles that, if you can see them, are on the front of your stomach. Yes. And then the back of the core is going to be made up of your multifidus or your erector spinae. These are what we know as your back extensors. So these muscles connect directly to your spine. And then when they're weak, they oftentimes can lead to low back pain. There's been several studies suggesting that people who have back pain, who do rehab and don't specifically train, the multifidi have over a 2 times greater chance of that back pain coming back. So this is something that you need to address if you're having back pain, so this isn't a problem, moving forward in the future. The next portion is the top of the box, your diaphragm, and this is what's most well known in terms of its role for breathing. And then last but not least, the bottom of the box is your pelvic floor. So as you can probably tell, there's a lot, excuse me, there's a lot more to train and focus on than just the abs. So then the question becomes, with all these moving parts, how do I know what to train? Where do I start? Well, it's important to consider a few pieces. Like, are you trying to protect and rehab your back? Are you looking to improve handling on your ride so things are a little bit easier when you're navigating more technical terrain? Are you looking to improve your physique? Because that's definitely important to some of us as well. There's no judgment, no matter what you're working on, what your goals are. It's just important to note that depending on what those goals are, your training's going to look a little bit different. But when it comes to training the core, we have to think about a couple different ways to do it. We'd have to think about strength. We have to consider stability. So they may sound the same on the surface, but there are some key differences that I'm going to break down for you here. When training the strength of the core, there should not, when you're thinking about training strength of the core, you want to activate the involved muscles through their full range of motion. So the goal is actually to have movement through those core muscles. So when you think about crunches, and exercises like that, we're actually moving and activating those muscles. That's going to be more the strength side of things. Compared to when you're training the stability of the core, there should not be much movement of the core at all. The stability is built when you can maintain that position while moving your extremities. So for this type of training, think about something like, switch our lights here. Think about something like the bird dog or a dead bug. Your arms are moving, your core is hopefully staying still. A lot of times we'll give different cues in rehab too, such as, pretend there's a water bottle on your back, or even putting an external cue like a stick on your back to make sure that you're keeping that core nice, stable, in place while you're building stability by moving those external components. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, that's nice to know, but what does that actually mean for me? Well, if you're wanting to improve your handling, stability makes the most sense to focus a little bit more attention on. If you want to improve your physique, strength training is always a good option. Of course, you got to pair that with other factors, but that's going to be an important piece. And then what about rehab? Should it be focused on strength, stability, endurance, maybe something else? This episode is starting to trickle maybe just a little bit into the low back, but that's okay because the back and the core, are so intertwined with, the back extensors even making up part of the core. So let's go back to the beginning of the episode when I mentioned the high frequency of cyclists reaching out saying their back is sore or tired after a ride. What's that all about? Well, this is a good time where we talk a little bit about endurance. If your muscles are getting tired from being in a prolonged position, in the case of cycling, maintaining that mostly static posture, in some cases a little bit more aggressive than others, for hours on end, it could be an issue with a bike fit. It could also be an issue with core endurance. So when training endurance, the first thing I think most of us think about is, again, those plank exercises. The plank is just everywhere you look. Every time you look up core, every time you look up abs, you're going to see plank at the top. It's almost something where it's been so ingrained in culture. It's like, we got to go straight to the plank, but there's other options and other things to consider. So with the plank, that's beneficial because you're holding for prolonged periods of time. Most cyclists at least consider training their core in this manner, but there still seems to be injuries even within those cyclists who are doing, their planks daily. From a strength and conditioning and even rehab standpoint, to train muscular endurance, you should be performing greater than or equal to 12 repetitions of each exercise for 3 to 4 sets, with less than 30 seconds between each set as a rest break. So there's a great big chart that we have to learn when we're becoming strength conditioning coaches. And maybe you've even, looked into a chart or something similar yourself, but it outlines, okay, here's the way you need to train in order to get certain muscular adaptations, whether that's strength, whether that's power, whether that's endurance. And working within these different schemes will force the muscles to react in different ways, and prepare them to do a better job once they have adapted in either of those categories. So again, if we're looking to improve endurance, we got to train with all the exercises we're doing within those endurance ranges. So if planks are not working for you, you've tried them, you've been doing them consistently for days on end and no progress, let's try something different. I would suggest trying some compound movements. You can try a squat, a lunge, a step up, but utilize the rep scheme that we just talked about, because that's where you're going to see some of the gains. Some other ideas for core training that have floated around the rehab space over the last several years. I'll just kind of touch on these trends. But one is focusing on hollowing or drawing in your stomach to improve the control or position of your core muscles. So one way that I would teach this in clinic or work on it, I would say, okay, put your hands behind your back and try and crush them. And this kind of cues your core to be in a little bit better position where you have some more control over things. And just focusing on activating over and over again so that you can get used to being able to activate your core and position in a good position. Okay. And then the next trend I want to talk about is the bracing technique. So this is a little bit more general, but with a bracing technique with different exercises, it's like the key would be try and tighten your stomach as if someone was about to punch you. So really just clenching, but continuing to breathe, of course. And with this, the thought is that you're getting more co-contractions, that you're activating all those muscles at once in order to, build strength and get those adaptations throughout the core. And then most recently, there's the functional approach that combines movements like the squat, half kneeling positions, and even kneeling exercises, working in quadruped or on all fours, working on both strength as well as stability. So this is currently the approach with some of the best evidence, as well as we're seeing that this is super popular in clinics right now. With all that being said, it's still very challenging in the current landscape with as much information as there is and advice that there is online regarding core strength. I can't even tell you how many times I've opened up Instagram or looking on YouTube, and I've just seen these wild exercises and movements that would never even consider. And a lot of that's to gain attention, draw traffic. But that's not really the point. The point is, in order to train your core effectively, you need to be utilizing exercises that target the diaphragm, target pelvic floor, target the abs, target the back extensors through a combination of strength, stability, endurance. So I know that's a lot, but that's going to be the winning combination for having a very strong core that's protected from injury and that's able to withstand these long rides, because Lord knows you're putting in a lot of effort on the bike. And those of you who are maybe even new to cycling or not competing or just going out for 20, 30 mile rides, you want to be able to do that without pain. You want to be able to do so comfortably. And investing a little bit in some of these exercises can be very helpful in protecting your body from injury. So I'm not going to leave you hanging with a lot of information there. I'm giving you a little bit of a sample option that is something I incorporate with a lot of my patients who I suspect could use some strengthening of the low back and core. This option is known as McGill's Big 3. So it's a routine. It's designed to protect the low back. It's pretty straightforward. It's not super long, only 3 exercises. It's something I've tried to work into my routine over the past year as well. But the routine consists of performing a side plank, and you can add in leg abduction too. And I would perform 15 reps of that leg abduction. So you're laying on your side in a side plank, then you're lifting your leg up and down. If that's too challenging, you can modify to where you're not lifting your leg, or you can even perform this exercise from a kneeling position. So your legs don't need to be fully extended. They can be bent a little bit. And that'll take, a little bit of the intensity away from the exercise. The next is the McGill curl up. So for this position, you're laying flat on your back. You've got one knee bent, and then you're placing your hands underneath your back, pressing your back in your hands to maintain that position. And then you're just curling up and coming back down. You can get videos of these exercises online quite easily. There's even a handout, McGill's Big Three, that's floating around the internet, super easy to find. The last exercise is the bird dog. So this is an exercise where on all hands and knees, and then you're extending, say, your right arm forward, and then you would extend your left arm backwards. And this is a really nice job of activating those back extensor muscles, as well as working on that stability, because we're moving those distal components, being your arm, being your leg, while keeping that core nice and sturdy. And then with rep ranges, I would focus on those endurance ranges. So thinking, really greater than 12, but maybe shoot for 15. Just see how you do with it the first couple times. You can always make adjustments, and you can always reach out if you have questions or something doesn't feel right. But as you'll notice, this routine, the McGill's Big Three, hits on every area of core, and it combines endurance, stability, and strength. So it's very popular within the rehab space for both treating and preventing low back pain through core activation, core strengthening, building core stability. So really, depending on where you're at with your training and your rehab, this might be a sufficient place to start. Maybe you're trying to work in these exercises every day or every other day. But I always recommend, some of the rehab exercises are great, especially if you are dealing with injury, to kind of reintroduce some stress to that tissue. But I always recommend including strength training through a full body routine that takes place at least twice a week on top of your riding, because that's what's going to make the biggest difference long term in making sure you can ride for as long as you want. You can be as healthy as you want on the bike. You can be as comfortable as you want on the bike, and you don't have to worry about these aches and pains. And am I going to make it through the next group ride? Am I going to be able to get out on the weekend, enjoy a 20-30 mile ride? Am I going to be able to compete in the charity ride coming up? Whatever your goals are, whatever you want to do on the bike, strength training is the key to longevity within the sport. And it's going to do wonders in terms of improving both that comfort and, once again, the performance. So that's all I have for today. If you like this episode, feel free to leave a 5-star review. It's going to undoubtedly help more cyclists access this content and take control of their health, both on and off the saddle. If you're on social media and you're interested in more cycling content, you can follow me at johnschaefer.dpt. That's JOHNSCHAEFER.dpt. And if you're interested in working one-on-one with me, trying to rehab an injury, trying to get stronger, visit painfreecycling.com. You can fill out the application, and I'm happy to set up a time for a free assessment. Thanks so much for all ongoing support. Like I said, I'm having a blast making this content. And we'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week, everyone.